this thing on?
We talking about practice, man.
I work with my hands. It's a misdemeanor in 27 states.
You gotta be comfortable with your co-host in this amount of space.
Yeah, I can see me and you.
This guy runs a state.
You get that through your head?
You just got hashtag content.
Technology and stuff.
Open your grill. It's stuck in your teeth.
Now I have to mark them so I don't get the lick mine.
You're not really that stupid, are you?
Quavos.
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
We don't have a lot of editing this time.
The ceiling is the roof. Let's make it happen.
Ready Thy Checkbook, Independence Day weekend, all about the stars and gold bars.
Speaking of stars, home field advantage is a thing of the past, but we still care about the MLB All-Star Game.
The voice of the JC Cardinals, Justin Rocke with an E, joins us to talk some national pastime.
All about the moolah, all about the moolah. One NFL player wants to make roundball money. Cha-ching.
Straight cash, homie. To be determined, episode 18, previously recorded from the studio in Mom's basement. At Sports by Bond, with at Travs Matt, Stephen Bond, Matt Traybold, an all-star.
You.
An all-star list.
Us.
On the show.
We. They. I ran out of them.
A rundown of what's ahead on the 18th edition of TBD. We're talking with FOT's Justin Rocke, the voice of the JC Cardinals. Speaking of baseball, Wild Thing, back in ball and back in the headlines. Plus, should NFL players be paid more? One Buffalo Bill, an advocate for that. So with that, we welcome you in to the studio in Mom's basement in upstate New York. Maddie, what's the word this week?
Fourth.
The 4th. Happy 4th of July weekend.
4TH, baby. 4TH. Proud to be him. No.
Oh, I thought that was on the board there for a minute. Not on the mixing board. Not on the mixing board.
Do we have a lot of bumps that are 2.5 seconds long? I gave up on it. I don't want to impress people too much, right? Oh my gosh! I didn't even know that was an option.
Little loud. That's my fault.
Wait a second. I didn't even know that was an option.
Little loud. All right. Little loud.
That I can't condone that.
That wasn't loud enough.
You have added some things to this.
I got a couple of things. That's it. Still working on the applause and the boos. We do not have those. So we're working on that.
Boo! See, there you go.
We'll just cut that and take that. I feel like you should do it slower and then build your way up.
Boo.
But like a boo.
It's a
boo!
That's the
little warm up and then get into it.
It's a boo crooner.
All right, let's jump into NBA free agency. That's really the headline of this weekend. It's all about the dollars, all about the stars and gold bars when it comes to the NBA. At last we spoke was Friday. Steph Curry signing that ridiculous $201 million deal. Blake Griffin, just before that, getting the $173 million deal. They're now the two richest contracts in the history of the NBA.
That one is very important. 201.
Yeah. $200 million was not good enough. They needed that extra million. Because who doesn't, really? I mean,
man got to eat.
Hey, he's starving. He's got kids to feed. Since then, J.J. Redick signing a one-year, $23 million deal to head to the process in Philadelphia. What do you make of the Redick signing?
I think that's a lot of money for essentially a role player, but it's one that's very necessary, very needed, and a veteran presence, so on and so forth. S-O-A-S-F to the Sixers.
You lost me there.
It's just trying to break down an acronym for the 5-word phrase.
You lost me there. So on and so forth?
So us.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Really glad we used time on that.
Is that a $23 million six-man?
In this NBA, after all the money getting poured into it in 2016, probably.
He's not going to start, though, right? I mean, after the first-round picks they have and the number one overall picks,
he can't
possibly start.
This is the kind of guy who, because they have so much youth on this team, and Gerald Henderson's not there anymore, granted he's a much different two-guard than J.J. Redick.
Right.
Because of the youth, he might play at the start of the season in the starting lineup. But I think once guys really get into their own, get healthy, get their legs under them, really get acclimated to NBA basketball, I'm not sure he's going to be there too much longer.
The Cavs not very active in free agency, and we'll talk about LeBron James much later on in the show, but he's basically given up being the GM of this team. They re-signed Kyle Korver to a 3-year, $22 million deal. Again, another role player. There's
been a lot of surprise re-signings, especially Blake Griffin after everything that happened with Austin Rivers and Doc Rivers and Chris Paul leaving. This is a big one, too. I don't think Kyle Korver at this point in his career, and the fact that he didn't really have a lot of connection to the Cavaliers last year in terms of when he joined them, to be signing not only in general back with them, but for 3 years. And again, it's another perimeter offensive role player that's getting paid. But he's at least been an all-star, so he's a little bit of a leg up.
36 years old, I think. Is that what we...
He's, I think, 36, 38. We looked at a lot of NHL.
We looked at a lot of guys' ages
just so
recently.
many
old
free
guys
agent
getting
signings.
paid. The big one of the second wave, if you want to call it this, is Kyle Lowry re-signing with the Raptors. 3 years, $100 million even. Surprised you that he went back to Toronto?
I think you saw the writing on the wall, because the big narrative right after the season ended, especially for the Raptors themselves, was, oh, he might be going back to Philadelphia. He's a Villanova kid.
Yeah.
That seemed like a pretty good move, but then you have the Markelle Fultz connection, and they went out to get him in terms of a trade. They probably weren't going to get him if they don't make that trade with the Celtics. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. So he probably saw like, maybe they don't want me so much on that end of things. I might want to go there. So re-signing, I guess he didn't find any other suitors he really liked.
The two big free agents still out there, Paul Millsap. Golly.
The Pillsap.
Yeah, the Pillsap. P. Millsap. And Gordon Hayward. The two big free agents really available. So Hayward, connected to the Celts and Miami?
Celtics, Miami. If the courting technique of putting big old signs outside your stadium is an indication about who's at the top.
Both did it. Miami has got signs.
They had Photoshop involved. The
Oh,
Celtics,
really? Okay.
just words. It's just words.
Well,
That's the only barometer. So I think he's obviously going to Miami.
get with 2017 then.
Yeah, right? Photoshop.
All right, so the question becomes, where do these mega deals come from? How does the NBA afford these things? Well, look no further than the new TV deal, worth $24 billion. $24 billion.
With a B.
With a B.
And an I, and two L's, and a second I, and an O and an N.
That's true. That's how you spell billion. I'm glad you did that, because I cannot spell. That's $3.6 billion more than the NFL got. It's insane.
It doesn't seem right. We have talked about it on the show for a few weeks now, where it's the crazy concept of maybe the NBA over the last couple off seasons, not just this one, is starting to have better off seasons consistently.
They've killed
than
it.
the NFL.
They've killed it.
The
this
giant,
offseason.
the giant, and this is no different.
Where do they get this money from? How do they do this? It's got to be thanks to things like China and marketing the game overseas, because basketball is more of a global sport than the NFL is. That is the only reason, in my mind, that you end up with this $24 billion. It's certainly not more popular in America.
I mean, you mentioned China, which is so big, because Yao Ming was getting voted as an all-star starter like 3 years after he was actually healthy to play in the NBA. And I know, so we just got this guy, Joe Chi, 2016 draft pick, but he just signed. Everyone was surprised. It only took a year for the Rockets, who drafted him in 2016, to sign him. And I don't know. We'll see if he can become that megastar in the NBA because of China in that connection.
But that's the point, though, is that China, I think, comes into play here.
Huge.
China, as our president likes to say.
Oh, I was like, what reference is that? As long as Klay Thompson doesn't have to go there.
Oh, God. Clay, side note, Clay is not doing himself some service over there.
He never wants to see the numbers 3, 6, and 0 together at all going back.
Missed on that dunk in embarrassing fashion. And then
Life alert.
It just came out that he got beat in a arm wrestling competition with a girl over there. Now, the girl cheated and tickled him.
She was tickling.
Still, it's not a good look. What are you doing over there, Clay? What are you doing? It's not a good on you over there. It's bad. All right, let's jump to the NHL. The headline's not nearly as nice in the NHL, but there are some players getting paid. 30-year-old goaltender of the Montreal Canadiens signing an 8-year, $84 million deal. Carey Price increasing his average salary from a measly $7 million to now that beefy $10.5 million.
Beef. But this brings up the fact that maybe the most rough and tumble professional sport here in the U.S. is the NHL.
Yeah.
And not all the time. It's not super across the board, but you have guys like Jágr. We were talking about him earlier today just in preparation for this show.
Mm-hmm.
They have guys that play till they're very old in a rough and tumble sport like this.
Jágr, I think, is going to be 45 if he plays next year. That's insane. And he talked about playing until he was 50. So that's 5 more years. Jágr,
just a number, I guess.
As of the recording of this show on Sunday night, Jágr's still a free agent. So we'll see if he ends up getting signed. The Carey Price deal is interesting. It's front-loaded. I'm not quite sure where the advantage is to the team here at all. He's a 30-year-old goaltender. It's kind of like a 30-year-old running back. I'm not saying 30's the wall for a goaltender, but his better years are behind him. They're not in front of him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just
and you've now
factual.
front-loaded the deal. So I don't see where this is a player. This is a very odd situation to me. From what we've seen, what has been reported, we haven't seen the contract. So what we've seen reported of this deal, it's very player-friendly, which is very odd in this situation for an older goaltender. I'm not saying he's aging, but at 30, again, he hits 34 halfway through this contract. He may be done.
No, I like you saying older, because older is just, that's a number. That is his age. But yeah, aging would mean in terms of production. So yeah.
And he's been in the league a long time.
And I think that's really what you see. And playing at a high level for a long time now.
And speaking of guys that have been in the league a long time, Patrick Marleau signing a 3-year deal with the Leafs. Toronto going all in here. 3 years, $18.75 million. Speaking of guys getting paid at a very, very old age. Again, we looked up his age. I think he's what? Going to be 38.
He might be the 38.
I got to try to figure this out now.
But yeah, while you look that up,
I'm going to look this up, man.
I can't comprehend. My brain meat doesn't do it. Patrick Marleau not being a San Jose Shark. He's been playing for them since he was 18. 19 straight seasons? That's absurd.
He hasn't missed a game since 2009.
Oh my gosh. This goes in that rough and tumble, tough and rumble.
Well, it's a guy. I'm looking up the age right now.
Cheesy smile.
Bad radio.
The same cheesy smile. No, I'm on the mic. I'm on the mic right now. It's just I can't fathom it. And I think it's a point to be made that I'm not the hugest hockey guy, and I know it's weird to see him not with the San Jose Sharks.
37. He will be.
What's the difference?
He'll be 38 by the time. I knew it was somewhere in that round.
38 counts for me then.
He'll be 38 by the time they drop the puck next year. So he's going to be 41 entering the last year of that deal. I mean, that's insane. This is a dude that is obviously an Iron Man. He hasn't missed a game, and he's a good player. But $6-something million, that's a steep price for Patrick Marleau. And listen, at that third year is going to be Matthews' last year of his rookie deal, I believe. So they're going to be in some trouble there. Matthews and Mitch Marner are both going to be looking to get paid. They're going to be in some trouble there.
I want to see how he helps the maturation in the NHL of Austin Matthews.
Yeah, I mean it's important.
He's honestly basically there already
Hopefully,
in terms of production, Matthews. So I don't know how much help he needs, but
well, you still need some. I mean, rookie year. I just hope he tells him to stop getting those cheesy tattoos. He's got a lion tattoo on his arm. Man, it's just not good.
Rawr. Hey.
All right, Kevin Shattenkirk, the big free agent, really the biggest free agent splash. Carey Price being a restricted free agent. Kevin Shattenkirk being the biggest UFA. 4 years, $26 million to the New York Rangers, so he's a little over $6 per year. I like the signing, but it seems like the Rangers' window has closed. King Henry is old. He's ancient at this point. No longer the highest-paid goaltender in the league. Yes, is Kevin Shattenkirk a good player? Sure. He'll add to the Blue Shirts. There's no doubt. He'll add. And the rumors were the entire time he was going to go to New York. I think they were just trying to figure out the numbers. It's a good signing for them. He's a good player. Didn't help the Caps at all. They couldn't get out of the second round. I'm not sure the Rangers are going to get out of the second round. If they get there at all.
I remember, so we were doing the Friday show, and so much rigmarole. Like, can we talk about Shattenkirk? Is he going to the Rangers? And then it's like, oh, yeah, he's going to the Rangers. Some people were reporting that, and then people were refuting that. He ends up going there anyways. It's just kind of a tangent, but like, oh my gosh, all this rigmarole.
Friday show now available on iTunes and Google Play, by the way, as well as YouTube. So the question becomes, what happens to Matt Duchene? The Avs want to trade him. This is, again, Colorado talk for Matty. Avs want to trade him. He appears to want out. So this is just going to become the most awkward situation until training camp begins. So it's kind of a wait and see at this point. Someone's got to really want Duchene, and they've got to have the pieces to trade for him.
And unfortunately, they're probably going to look at it. Yes, he's been very productive, but he has not brought a team. Yes, a lot of young guys around him, but he's not brought a team to better records. And he's had maybe young talent, but it's still very good talent around him for a while now. Varlamov, McKinnon, Landeskog.
Yeah, but they've traded away pieces. I mean, they traded away Ryan O'Reilly. They got rid of their coach in Patrick Waugh, who was I loved. I thought he was a decent head coach. I shouldn't say loved. I liked him. I thought he was a decent head coach. I don't know. That franchise
it's complicated.
Just seems like they're kind of like the Bills. They can't decide whether they're all in or they're all out on a tank or not. They can't figure it out. They don't know where to go. They're in purgatory almost.
It's crazy to think he's still essentially in his mid-20s because he has been at a high level. He has been
Talented
one of the
player.
cornerstones of the Avs for a while. I remember, the days of him and Brandon Yip and Peter Budaj with shirtless Ned Flanders on his bucket. Just when I was really into the Avalanche in terms of my college days.
All right, let's jump to the Diamond. Yanks Aaron Judge getting the highest vote in the AL. Pretty interesting here.
And his first go-around for voting.
His first go-around for voting. He's the highest vote getter in the AL. The note that I had here that I thought was interesting is the bat is what gets him in. It's how far and hard he's hitting the baseball. And he really has shown good patience and judgment, maturity with the bat, I think, in this first half of his rookie season.
I would say so. And you had this weird happening last year. So he came up a little bit before Gary Sanchez and had these kind of numbers, this kind of impact for the first week or two. Then Gary Sanchez came up, and instead of them both having success together, which arguably they have right now in their first full seasons, he went the complete opposite way. As Gary Sanchez rose to greatness, he went down. And he's really shown in not that long of a time. I mean, this was just a few months ago in the grand scheme of things. He has really shown, like you said, patience. He's really tightened the hinges on so many parts of his game in not that long of a time. And for a guy this young, he's a pretty old rookie. That's really a big thing to see.
There are a lot of young guys in baseball right now that are making this sport very exciting. For a guy who's not a traditional baseball fan, I'm very intrigued by this year. I don't catch every game, but I like to watch a variety of games and watch a variety of different people. You know, on the night we're recording this, we're watching St. Louis and Washington. Bryce Harper getting, 2 home runs on that night? So
far.
Another young guy. He's becoming a veteran, but a guy that's still on the younger part of his career, an exciting guy to watch.
And it's big that you're seeing a lot of these guys you're talking about there, you're describing. Young, exciting, big names coming up right now, and they're all happening with the Yankees. And in terms of the last half decade, they were such an aging team. But now they have the two guys that came up at the end of last year, Gary Sanchez, Aaron Judge, playing really big. And then just this past week, you had a few more hitting prospects, big-time prospects, make their debut. Andujar, 4 RBIs in his MLB debut. Clint Frazier, home run in his MLB debut. It's big stuff.
A lot to get to with the Diamond quickly as time running down in the A block. 2 of the top 3-4 teams in all of baseball not going to have a starter in Boston and the Dodgers. Little surprising considering the Dodgers have the best record in the National League. The Astros getting 3 starters in. 2 are first-timers. Maybe a couple questionable ones there. So interesting, at least starting lineup for the 2017 All-Star Game down in Miami.
Yeah, I definitely like all 3 of the Astros that made it. But you just have the Red Sox, who have made a big, big comeback in the AL East over the Yankees after just a few, I don't want to say putrid, but definitely a little bit rough the last few weeks there for the Bronx Bombers. But Mookie Betts, I thought he was definitely going to win enough votes in order to get into the starting lineup, and he comes away maybe not being a huge snub. He still made the All-Star team, but it's definitely there.
More baseball talk. We're going to continue this discussion around the block, but we're going to bring in FOT's Justin Rocke, the voice of the Johnson City Cardinals. Rocke spelled with an E. We'll bring in Justin next to talk more about this 2017 All-Star and really the state of baseball as we've had 80-something games played here, close to 80-something games. TBD rolling on after this.
You're you, I'm me. Hope you listen to the first part of the show to learn our names. This is To Be Determined.
Wouldn't be a B block if we didn't hear that line. At Sports by Bond with at Travs Matt. Pleased to be joined by the one and only play-by-play broadcaster, really the voice of the Johnson City Cardinals, at Justin Rocke, Rocke with an E.
There it is.
You haven't mentioned it. Justin, what's going on, my man?
Not too much, man. It's been a busy day. Just wrapped up a doubleheader against the Pulaski Yankees and getting ready to do it all again tomorrow, wrapping up a 6-game homestand.
Well, listen,
how you guys doing?
We're hanging in there. It's late on a Sunday night, but we appreciate you stretching the vocal cords, at least for the next few minutes after the doubleheader.
I appreciate it. It's a one-man booth up there in Johnson City, so it's been a lot of talking for the last couple hours, but I think I'll make it work.
Well, listen, we'll dive right into it. We won't keep you waiting too long. You've seen your fair share of baseball, including this year. You've seen a bunch of Major League guys come through the ranks and whatnot. So the All-Star roster being released tonight as we're speaking.
Yep.
What do you make of the roster?
I thought it was very interesting. There's some guys on there that I was surprised to see selected, and some guys on there that I'm glad ended up being selected. I mean, you look at the All-Star starters. I mean, there are guys there from smaller market teams that you wouldn't necessarily expect that would get selected. I mean, I was stunned that Justin Smoke from the Blue Jays ended up getting selected to start at first base. I mean, you look at the outfield in the National League, you've got Bryce Harper alongside Charlie Blackmon and Marcell Ozuna, who are not necessarily big-time names on the national circuit. Zach Cozart getting the start for the National League at shortstop over Corey Seager, who's, won the National League Rookie of the Year award last year. Then also looking at some of the reserves, I mean, I was kind of surprised that Gary Sanchez from the Yankees made it. Although I grew up a Yankee fan, I was kind of surprised to see that happen. Luis Severino, also from the Yankees, was kind of taken aback by that. But it's interesting. I mean, it's kind of crazy looking at some of those guys in the final vote, and you've got Chris Bryant in there in the National League, and you've got Xander Bogaerts and some of the other guys in the American League there as well. So it was very interesting to see how it sort of unfolded. Some guys that very much deserved it, though, I'm glad got in there.
Who's the biggest snub?
Who's the biggest snub? I mean, it's kind of interesting. There's some lower-name guys that certainly got snubbed. I thought Aaron Hicks, speaking of Yankees, has had a fantastic season. Obviously, a little banged up right now on the disabled list for New York. But he's played very well for them. Looked at the numbers a little bit before we got on air, but Gio Gonzalez from the Nationals has been very good for them so far this season. Probably one of those guys that got left off because in Major League Baseball you need to have one player from every team, which I think is probably a little bit outdated. One of those things that could possibly go away at some point. But some of the other guys I saw, Adam Duvall's had a really good season with the Cincinnati Reds, which was kind of surprising. And also the other name that kind of sort of leaped out to me was also Chris Davinsky, the reliever for the Houston Astros, had a great season. And, the way Dellin Betances has been struggling lately for the Yankees, I wouldn't have been stunned to see if he snuck in there over Dellin, but I guess the bigger name prevailed.
So in a perfect world where there's no required rest days, if that didn't play a role, which two pitchers would you like to see start the 2017 MLB All-Star Game?
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, the National League, you've got to choose between Max Scherzer and Clayton Kershaw, two of the best in the business. Probably leaning towards Kershaw because, I mean, as good as Scherzer is, Kershaw really still is the king of the mountain in terms of pitchers, not just in the National League, but in Major League Baseball. And then American League, it's kind of interesting. You look at that list of starters, I guess it sort of narrows down to Dallas Keuchel for the Astros, who's had a tremendous bounce-back season for them in Houston, against Chris Sale from the Boston Red Sox, who has obviously had a great season adapting to going to Boston from Chicago. So if it was my druthers, I'd probably go with Kershaw against Sale, just based on they're the biggest names and they're the probably two best pitchers on either side of things right now, although I really wouldn't complain if it was Kershaw against Keuchel either.
Hard to complain either way there. It really is. A number of good guys on that top end that are at least entertaining to watch. You hope you at least get a little bit of gas out of them. I know they're not going to try to kill the arms, but a little bit would be nice. All right, biggest change to this All-Star game has been that it no longer affects the World Series, that we're not worried about home field advantage anymore. I personally don't like the change. I loved the fact that this game meant something. what do you make of the fact that this is kind of a meaningless game now?
See, I'm the exact opposite. I love the fact that the whole situation where it's, determining home field advantage in the World Series is gone out the window, and it's back to being an exhibition game. Because quite frankly, when you break it down, when you look at the last couple of years, especially in this decade or so, it is part of a overreaction to the tie in the 2002 All-Star Game, where quite frankly, all they had to do was make the rosters a little bit bigger, and they could have stretched it out a little bit longer. But in terms of home field advantage, I thought it was unnecessary. That guys from teams that quite frankly stink shouldn't be determining whether or not the Cubs or the Indians or the Red Sox, the Cardinals, whoever it is playing in the World Series is determining who's got home field advantage. I mean, I think it was the All-Star Game back in like 2010 or whatever, and like Marlon Byrd on like a really bad Cubs team had like the game-winning hit in the All-Star Game or something like that. Who knows? That could change the entire complexion of the World Series, and you get that extra home game and the way it sets up. So I'm very happy that it's back to just being an exhibition game and enjoy the baseball for what it is. Obviously, it doesn't mean as much, and I think players who I don't think players are going to back out anymore from it just because it doesn't mean anything, but they still love being a part of the festivities and stuff like that. Not everyone's Derek Jeter at the end of his career is just like, nah, I'm going to take my vacation with my model girlfriends.
Because the game is a little bit more meaningless now, you mentioned this just a second ago, should it be moved to the end of the season, you think?
No, I think it's better in the middle of the season. I mean, the end of the season, these guys have gone through 162 games, and then you add in the postseason factor there. I think it's better. I think what they have right now is really good. I love the futures game. I love the fact that they have a chance to showcase all the prospects. Never really cared for the softball game, but hey, I guess it's some people's thing. They like seeing those celebrities swing the bat, and I love the change that they made to the home run derby, making it just a timed thing instead of you get 10 outs. It's more like batting practice. These guys get into a rhythm. Mm-hmm. Saw them do it when I worked in the Florida State League in the All-Star Game there. I thought that was fantastic, and now it's been adopted. And you saw what Stanton did last year in the home run derby, which was pretty ridiculous. Watching what he did, and now with the All-Star Game, I think right now what they have with their setup, I think is the best way to go.
Let's go to some young stars. Cody Bellinger, just 21 years old, didn't get called up until the end of April. To me, this league is turning real young, and I think that's exciting for Major League Baseball at this point. Who is maybe the most exciting young guy to watch?
Bellinger's up there. I mean, he's an interesting guy. I know he just accepted the invite to the Home Run Derby. I'm kind of curious to see how his swing sort of parlays into that. He's gotten like a really violent uppercut swing. So I'm curious to see how that sort of plays into a factor there. But there are a lot of really talented guys. A funny story, Aaron Judge, who's obviously been tremendous for the Yankees this past year. This shows how poor my scouting acumen is. I saw him play when my first year working in the Cape League, worked for the Bourne Braves. He was playing up in Brewster for the Brewster Whitecaps. And I watched him play, and I saw he was like on the list of like top prospects and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Everyone's talking about this guy, and it's like, this guy stinks. He's playing center field. He can't play the outfield. The baseballs actually up in the Cape League that year were juiced. Like, I don't understand exactly how it happened, but normally the Cape League, these are guys playing with wood bats really for the first time in their careers, and normally the pitching obviously dominates the hitting. And I was told coming in, like, all the games are going to be 2-1. Game's going to be over 2.5 hours. You're going to be in and out. It's great.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the games are like 11-10. The games are going on for freaking ever. And they found I cut the baseballs in the middle of the summer and realized that, like, I guess they were wound so tightly. It's basically like they had those pink bouncy balls that you had as a kid in there.
Yeah.
And Judge had less home runs than Colin Moran and Mason Robbins. And if you know who Colin Moran and Mason Robbins are, you watch a lot of baseball.
I do not. So
that makes two of us.
I worked with those two guys. They're great dudes. I actually work now. It's kind of crazy with Mason's younger brother Walker here in Johnson City. But Judge had less home runs than these guys with juice baseballs. So when the Yankees drafted him, like, this guy's never going to play a single inning in the major leagues. And sure enough, he's been the AL MVP in the first half of the Yankees. So, both those guys are really exciting. I think it's awesome that so many of these young prospects, especially I remember back in 2015 when Bryant and Russell and those guys came up for the Cubs for the first time, and that whole year with Correa coming up on the scene, Sano, Jose Barrios also with the Twins. So many of these guys who were drafted as signed as high prospects are coming up and making a big impact, and I think it's great for the game, and I think hopefully it sort of revolves into becoming the game getting more and more popular.
So you called the games of a few current Cubs stars while at your last stop with the Tennessee Smokies. You're mentioning Nashville. What do the Cubs have to do to turn it around in the second half?
It's sort of interesting. That feels like, I guess, that World Series hangover has sort of, I guess, become a thing, which is not necessarily something I expected to happen with the Cubs. It's been kind of crazy to see what's happened with them. A little bit of infighting, which with Miguel Montero, what happened in the last week, and he rehabbed with us in 2015, and he could not have been a nicer guy with Wilson Contreras, who was coming up through the system at the time. I think they'll find a way to figure it out. Contreras got off to a slow start with the bat. He's beginning to pick it up. And you just look at the numbers, just the guys just aren't performing the way you'd expect them to. I mean, you look, Bryant, you figure would be a lock. Bryant Rizzo locks for the All-Star game. They're not in it right now, and they're hitting below what you normally expect. I think they're probably missing Dexter Fowler a little bit more than they expected. As much as I love Alberto Moore Jr., John Jay, I guess they haven't produced the way they expect in center field. And Kyle Schwarber, another guy I worked with down there in Knoxville, he's gotten off to a rough start. He's beginning to figure it out now while he's down in AAA Iowa. I mean, I was talking with my dad about it. Maybe just needs to get his eye checks or something like that. Something little like that, can go a long way because it's not something that hasn't happened before. So, I mean, I think they'll find their way. They've had their issues, but I mean, the NL Central right now is just a log jam of mediocrity, and I don't really foresee the Brewers taking a stranglehold on this division, and the Cardinals have had their fair share of issues. So, the Cubs will find their way into the postseason, and it's one of those things. I mean, remember the 2000 Yankees won 89 games, and they wiped the floor with everybody on their way to the World Series. So if the Cubs get in, I think they'll be fine.
Knoxville. I said Nashville. I got to get my head in some more maps.
That's close enough.
I love Nashville. I love Knoxville, but Nashville's on a different level.
Hey, we saw from the Stanley Cup final. It looks like a darn good time. All right, what team not at the top of the division has a chance to maybe win their division?
I mean, obviously the Cubs, talking about it right now, obviously they've got a big shot. The NL West has been sort of crazy this year with the way the Diamondbacks and the Rockies have played. I mean, now the Dodgers have come on strong, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that as it unfolds down the stretch. NL East seems to be a lock into seeing what happens there. AL West will be interesting to see what happens with Texas going up against Houston. I mean, Houston was my preseason pick in the American League to make the World Series. And the AL Central's also, I think that's a crazy thing. What's going on with the Indians and the Cubs? They both heavy favorites this year to sort of get back to the World Series, and they haven't really done that, or at least live up to expectations for this year. So it'll be very interesting to see how that race comes out. I think it's not so much now with teams that that aren't in first place, can they get back up there? It's more of these teams that are young, the Twins, the Diamondbacks, the Rockies we talked about. Can they maintain the success that they've had as they get down the stretch? And some of these younger players, the wear and tear of a 162-game season doesn't take a toll on them, and they sort of burn out down the stretch. So I think that's the big thing to watch.
So getting away from baseball a little bit now, we have 5 more questions. The final 5, right off the bat. I know the answer to this, but you should tell the masses, what's your alma mater?
I went to Penn State with you, Matt. All back in the glory days at PSU. Still one of my favorite Penn State moments. Involves you I think it was your senior year, my junior year. There was a stretch of time in the winter, and for those of you who don't know, Matt doesn't wear pants
ever.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. It could be winter, summer. He is always wearing shorts, and it was a stretch in January where the wind chill was well below 0. It hurt for me to be outside. I walked to class at 8 in the morning, and I was like, "Why am I outside?" I run into Matt on campus. And sure enough, there he is in shorts. He's got sandals on. It's like, I wanted to know what weather was going on where you were. But God bless you, man. You've got the skin of a damn dinosaur or something. I don't know what.
It's so funny to me.
You're an ox.
But it was the stubbornness of it, though, especially with the sandals, got me in trouble a lot because I was slipping around all sorts of places.
It wasn't the cold; it was the fact that he couldn't keep his footing.
And then, but you can't let him see you cry. If you fall, you can't let him see you waver. You just got to keep walking.
I can't even argue that because I've never tried to walk in sandals in snow, so I really.
And nor should you
don't
ever.
have that experience. I don't have that frame of reference.
You got to try to like roll into it and then just pop back up on your feet. All part of the plan. All part of the plan. No.
It's amazing to me that you grew up in upstate New York in Rochester, one of the snowiest cities in the country.
An oxymoron.
It's almost as if, I can understand if you were from Florida and went to Penn State and had no idea that there was going to be snow there. You have the knowledge.
That's where I think Rochester comes into play, is that he's so used to the cold. Penn State cold doesn't faze me anymore.
It's balmy there for him.
Your idea of cold. I remember going uphill 20 miles, negative 30 degrees.
Mortals.
Both ways.
Both ways.
Oh, goodness. All right. Justin Rocke, the play-by-play broadcast voice of the JC Cardinals. What is your secret talent, sir?
Secret talent. Matt can probably attest to this. My memory can be very stupid at times. I was the sports factoid kid. I couldn't tell you any of the math formulas I needed to know for class, but I could tell you what Jason Giambi's batting average was in 2000. Because that's really going to help me get a job down the line. It's like CFO or stump in the Schwab. Here's $20 and here's a 7-figure paycheck. So my memory, it helps sometimes on air broadcasting, memorizing stupid things, but certainly didn't help me out in the classroom at all.
That's how you carry a doubleheader, though.
And he works in pro baseball, but he knows his NBA too. Big NBA guy.
Now, we spent many a time talking about the NBA college basketball back in our BSU days.
All right, on to number 3. What was your best Halloween costume?
Best Halloween costume? There's a couple. As a kid growing up, it was one of two things. When I was really young, I was a huge Power Rangers guy. So, always was the red or blue Power Ranger. That was my thing for a while.
Respect.
The other one, I'm always dressed up as a baseball player. My favorite one was in college, and everyone is huge. Matt can attest to this at Penn State. Huge into Halloween.
Oh yeah.
I am really lazy, so everyone would spend all these times coming up with these costumes, and it's I'm just gonna put on whatever jersey I have. But one year, I decided to go all out, and I found a Carl Spackler costume from Caddyshack. And
wow.
I got a Carl Spackler costume, the floppy hat, the Bushwoods Country Club shirt, the stupid pants, and borrowed a friend's a golf club and just sort of walked around campus a little under the influence. I think that was my sophomore year or something like that.
Well hydrated.
All right, speaking of hydration, favorite beer?
Favorite beer? See, I'm not a picky beer drinker. I'm the kind of guy that will literally, if you give me a beer, I will drink it. But if I had my druthers, there are 3 beers that I usually go for. If I'm going to try and go a little bit nicer, Blue Moon.
Okay.
If I'm at going and picking up beer at a store, I'll go and pick up a 30 rack of Bud Light. But I being a frat guy at Penn State, I don't care what anybody says. I still have a soft spot in my heart for Natty Light. So if you're in Johnson City, Tennessee, I kid you not, tomorrow night, $1 Monday, Johnson City, Tennessee, $1 Natty Lights at TVA Credit Union Ballpark. So if you're in the area, come drink a Natty with me.
That is awesome that they have that as a deal. That is amazing.
We're on the next bus down. I think it settles it.
That's awesome. All right.
I think I can know a guy that can get you in.
All right. Last one. Where can we find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet. You can follow me on Twitter at Justin Rocke, ROCKE. If you are interested in listening to any of our games, you can find us on jccardinals.com as well. Our flagship station, NBC Sports, tricities.com. All 68 regular season games will be broadcast. So if you want to find me or listen to me talk about nonsensical things during baseball season, that's the way you can find me at Justin Rocke, ROCKE. I'll usually have my link to whatever broadcast I'm doing, whether it's baseball, basketball. I think I'm doing a Tiddlywinks tournament next week somewhere in Bristol, Tennessee. Yeah, and anything like that, you can find me there.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Justin Rocke, hey, my man, we appreciate the time.
Thank you.
No problem, guys. Anytime.
All right, bump music in. Tease upcoming. The Wild Thing, speaking of baseball, we can't get rid of it today. The Wild Thing back in the news. And Sammy Watkins. Dollar bills, y'all. He's not getting enough of them. We'll have those stories and next segments for TBD rolling on.
Sports fans, make some noise. We're back here on To Be Determined.
At Sports by Bond, joined with a new co-host. At Typical Sports Nerd.
I don't think I was a nerd. It was more like a commentator voice. Like, not Jim Brockmeyer.
Is that your Jim Brockmeyer?
No. Because it would definitely be more accurate if it was Jim Brockmeyer.
Quick problem with the headphone box, but we fixed it. You can hear us. We're trying to hear ourselves, so.
I'll just be louder.
That's the problem.
So you can hear me.
It's not going to help my left ear. That's the problem.
That's a line you know.
It's, All right. At Sports by Bond with @Travs Matt. The show at To Be Determined. Or no, at TBD_show. The Instagram is To Be Determined Show. You can email the show, tbdmailman@gmail.com. Feel free to shoot us an email. Drop us a line on Twitter or a comment and whatnot on Instagram. I think you can slide into the DMs on Instagram. That's possible.
Yeah, I think it's fairly new, though.
Yeah.
Fairly new.
I think so. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. All right, C block. Time for some segments. We jump into the B-side story. Man, boxing really is if B-side's about as high as boxing can get right now outside of Floyd and what's his name there?
Conor McGregor.
Yeah, Conor McGregor. So we go Manny Pacquiao, the man who lost to Floyd. He loses in a controversial unanimous decision to Jeff Horn. Pac-Man now 5-4 in his last 9 fights, fighting at the ripe old age of 38. Final stats heavily in favor of Pacquiao in terms of punches landed and power shots and whatnot, but somehow does not come up with the decision. Didn't even get one vote, i.e. that it was unanimous. Many pundits had Pac-Man actually winning the fight, so big controversy breaking out on social media.
Yes.
You saw it in a number of different articles. Teddy Atlas, former Mike Tyson trainer, not happy. So a lot of controversy over this one.
The staggering stat for me that comes out of it is that some people had him getting outlanded. Horn, that is.
Yes.
By 90.
That's
and
a big
won.
number. And Pac-Man bleeding after, so some clear marks. The shots that got in there were effective from Horn. But, I mean, Horn was pretty beat up, too. He looked like he'd just been through the ringer.
Plus, a case can be made that that fight should not have been allowed to go on past the headbutt to the hairline of Manny Pacquiao.
Was that the reason he was bleeding? So I didn't see a whole lot of the
Probably
fight.
not the only reason, but definitely one of the major ones, if not the most major.
I missed most of this fight, if not all of it, really. So
You didn't make it out to Brisbane for it?
did not make it out to Brisbane for that one.
A red eye and a half to get back here for right now. The Syracuse. Brisbane to Syracuse. I think that can get direct.
I think there's good deals.
I think we can get a good direct.
Okay, all right.
Trivago. Is that something?
Pac-Man's trainer, Freddie Roach, said he would advise Manny to retire in the event of a loss. And Manny had his eye on much bigger fights. Right now, his biggest battle, his biggest fight is against Father Time. So Pac-Man said in the defeat, he said, quote, he deserves it, no complaints. He, meaning Horn, deserves the win. So humble as ever is the Pac-Man,
Always.
but I mean, it's not a good or bad. The loss should tell Manny something.
And I think when Fred Roach, usually it said Freddie Roach, even though he's grown. He's grown. So I'm going to hit him with the Fred Roach.
Okay, the adult one. Frederick?
When he speaks, you usually listen. And I think it's a guy who has a pretty good connection with those he trains. So I think he has their best outlook in his mind. So I feel like you would usually heat it even more so because of that, because he really cares for the guys he trains for.
Well, this is the conundrum. If you look good in a loss at 38, what do you do?
Yeah, and that's the age. The age point is where people shouldn't have been as surprised of the result as they were. He's an older fighter.
Yeah.
He's an older fighter.
I think he has aspirations, and he obviously does. His aspirations outside of the ring. It might be just time to pursue those.
Basketball, politics. They let him do whatever he wants in the Philippines.
Sing.
Yes,
even
sing.
though he can't.
Recording artist. Hey, I mean, I guess he's recording it. Artist. Recording, yes.
Recording, yes.
Artist. Oh, my word. I don't know.
That's a perfect way to put it. All right, so your B-side story is that Manny Pacquiao loses a fight. Teddy Atlas loses his mind after.
Let's see. I don't think any of them want Danny Garcia, etc. at the top of this division.
All right, let's go to buy the numbers. The number this week is $4.4 million, a rather large number. Is in the number of dollars 2 pieces of Babe Ruth memorabilia fetched at a recent auction. Ruth's 1927, possibly the greatest team ever assembled, his 1927 Yankees World Series ring, and a copy of the trade agreement between the Red Sox and Yankees were the items sold by Charlie Wild Thing Sheen. The ring getting just over $2 million, the trade agreement fetching nearly 2.4, so $4.4 million in all. Now, a different trade agreement by the Red Sox was sold back in 2004 for just under $1 million. So,
with inflation,
Ricky Vaughn doing quite well here for these items.
It's so random. I mean, I know he obviously has some interest in baseball. If he didn't have it before he was a Wild Thing, he has it after, you would think, unless he really hated doing that movie and making all that money. So he's baseball inclined to a certain degree. I mean, but for him to stumble upon that stuff, random.
Where does he get it? The question that I have for you is, are the 1927 Yankees the greatest team ever assembled?
It's tough.
In baseball.
It's like such a big question in sports.
It is.
Different generations of different sports, and how would they go against each other in terms of the game changing throughout the years?
The reason I ask this is because I'm curious. Ruth, the biggest name on that team, no? Okay. So
yeah, absolutely.
Assuming it's yes to both of those questions, and obviously the second one's a pretty obvious one, is this not the most valuable championship ring in the history of sports?
It's definitely got less bling because it was back.
Well, it was only one diamond, but just the history, the fact that it was Babe Ruth's, the fact that it comes from arguably the greatest team ever. This might be the most valuable ring. That's almost a steal at just over $2 million.
So one dime of how many blood diamonds? Because that's where the real money is made.
It's not the point of this.
I know. I think it's just tough. It's tough to do it against the guys. Maybe not playing right now in terms of saying who is better. But we've talked about this in the show before when it comes to Michael Jordan against LeBron.
And I get that's a rabbit hole we're going down. But I just happen to think of that this could possibly be the most valuable championship ring ever.
And it's in the hands of Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, it was. But that's the most amazing. That was the more amazing thing is that
I'm trying to think what crazy thing he would have bartered or traded for. Like he wanted a pet Komodo dragon or something.
Tiger blood.
No. That's not a real thing. Tiger's no blood.
All right, so the number this week is $4.4 million. We jump to Get Off My Lawn, and this one a rather personal one, as most of them are. It's just about everyone.
That's the whole point.
This one really hit home for me. So we bring on the female correspondent, Ashley Carter, to chat about a number of different female topics. Selfishly, we bring her on for tips on where and how to pick up chicks.
She even said at the end of one of our segments, go forth and hit on women.
That is a direct quote from one Ms. Carter.
Go back and look at the footage.
So I took that advice. I went forth and I hit on a woman in the gym. Not creepily. I like to just quick conversations, get in, get out, say a couple of comments, introduce myself, say a couple of comments, whatever, and be done with it.
Comments are involved.
Yes. Not creepy comments. I don't have any lines. I don't have pickup lines. The funniest line I had ever heard and used was, how much does a polar bear weigh?
Oh my gosh.
And it's cheesy enough to break the ice.
One of the most cliche ones.
I know, but I giggle at it the entire time. So this particular instance, I noticed this girl a handful of times at the gym I go to. Catches my eye because she's very attractive. But I made one observation about her. She's always wearing Nike, not a sponsor. Always wearing Nike, head to toe.
I think they know that. It's a big spot.
I'm just letting them know in case they want to sponsor the show.
That would be a big get.
So I make this observation, and it takes me a while. I've got to build up the confidence to talk to a girl. we can jump in front of the mics and know that this is being broadcast. We got downloaded in Japan last week. Okay, so thank you for those in Tokyo that have downloaded.
You know,
show.
it was Tokyo?
It was Tokyo specifically that we got it
wow.
downloaded. So thank you for that, friends in Tokyo, or friend in Tokyo. But going up and talking to chicks is the most uncomfortable situation for me in life. I've jumped in front of cameras and microphones that I know are being broadcast not only in the Western New York region, but all over the state, and have no problem with it. No qualms, can do it. Let's go. We go to talk to one female, and it all crumbles. So the cheesy line that I will admit, because I have no good pickup lines. I'm just not good at it. This is not one of my fortes. I noticed this young lady. She wears Nike head to toe. So I go and I think, all right, what can you say, Steven? What can you? How do you bring this up? All right, bring up the Nike, and just bring up Instagram model because she's cute and she knows she's attractive. So I walk up to her and I say, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but I have the most ridiculous question of all time. Are you a Nike model? Are you sponsored by Nike?" And she laughs at me because I'm a goober and I'm an idiot and responds, "No, but I wish." And that's how we strike up the conversation.
The taser. No.
Get the taser. So I get her name. I get the first name. That's it. And I end the conversation there. Just introduce myself. I'm Steve. How are you? She gives me her name.
Your name drop?
We'll go with Nike Emily. That's what we'll call this young lady.
So you did name drop.
Well, I
like
don't know the last name.
I like
but
that.
Anyway, so go back the next day. I see her again, and just say hello, quick interaction. Go back the next couple of days, she wasn't there. So eventually, the following week, I run into her, and I figured, you know what? Ask her out. Ask her to get a drink. What the heck? So she said that she couldn't that night, that she was busy the next morning, but we exchanged phone numbers. So I was like, great, this is perfect. I'll text her. I waited till the next day. Didn't want to seem like a stalker, and I waited till late in the afternoon the next day.
It's a tightrope.
And I simply sent out a text because I'm an Under Armour guy, and I rock a lot of Under Armour. Maddie wearing the headband today.
I am. You got to watch.
You'll see it on the post-game press conference released on a Wednesday on YouTube, and yeah, that's it, on YouTube. And I say, I'm an Under Armour guy, blah, blah, blah. So I send her the text message and just say, hey, you going Nike or Under Armour today? Because she had mixed it up and worn some Under Armour every couple of days, and she pointed it out to me. And I never got a response. That was it. So I don't know if the opening line in the text creeped her out or what, but the get off my lawn moment is myself, because I got to come up with some better lines. I got to get off my own lawn and come up with some way to talk to these females.
My prediction, maybe fell into a coma. Not a long coma. She would be perfectly healthy within the week.
Okay.
But hey, see, keep your chin up.
She fell into a coma.
Maybe. You never know. You never know.
In her 20s, I'm assuming she's somewhere in the 20s. No. I did not get an age.
Maybe she's got like Benjamin Button disease and she doesn't know how to use a phone now. She's young. Motor skills aren't there.
I've seen her use her phone plenty of times.
Is that how Benjamin Button works?
I don't remember. I never saw the movie.
Neither. Well, clearly I haven't. I don't know how the age stuff works. So
the get off my lawn moment this week is myself.
Yeah.
Any advice from one at Trabs Matt?
This is just general advice.
Okay.
Try to avoid comas.
Okay. All right. That's good. Good nugget. Good nugget. If you have advice, go ahead and drop us a line at TBD_show or at Sports by Bond. Willing to take advice.
We'll be embarrassed, so probably just stick with the email.
You can email.
TBDGmail. TBDGmail@gmail.com. Yes.
It's TBD
No.
Mailman.
That was right. That was right the first time.
TBD Mailman. Just the Karl Malone, like you said to me.
Yeah.
TBDmailman@gmail.com. All right. Let's move to Twitter takes. Bills wide receiver Sammy Watkins doing a bit of studying this offseason, it looks like. Studying of contracts. He's tweeting out on Sunday, we got to get paid more. I'm pretty sure 2014 class will change the market. Sammy, of course, tweeting about all of the insane NBA contracts that he's seen, you've seen, and I've seen everywhere. Guys fetching upwards of $201 million in the form of Steph Curry. Blake Griffin getting 173. Kyle Lowry getting, 100 flat over 3 years. So these guys are making absurd money in the NBA. It is, second most popular sport in America?
I'm not sure if it's NBA or MLB.
It's one of the two. It's either two or three. We'll save
Two-way
the
TV.
argument. we'll say the argument, say 2 or 3. NFL is undoubtedly the largest.
Yeah. No
or the
question.
most popular. I would say the largest. Most popular.
No question.
Most popular. And the revenue stream says such. If you don't believe it, the facts will back it up. The numbers will back it up. The NFL making $12 billion a year. The NBA only making $5 billion. But recent TV money into the NBA, the effect of that are now these massive contracts that guys are allowed to sign.
Yeah, even guys that aren't huge members of their own teams. In terms, not even talking about the entire NBA as a whole, and they're making absurd amount of money. I mean, you mentioned the $201 million. That's Steph Curry. A little bit earlier in that night, you had the $173 million that Blake Griffin had. Those are 1-2 all-time in the NBA in terms of money made in contracts. And then it was Mike Conley Jr. for a little bit after this.
Crazy.
He was the leader in NBA history.
That's crazy.
So that just shows that you even have to be a superstar to be getting this kind of money in the NBA.
So Sammy clearly sour about what he and the rest of the NFL guys are getting paid. And you can see why. The numbers dictate that some of these NFL guys maybe should be making a little bit more. The obvious answer is that there are, 12 guys on an NBA roster? Maybe 15 max. In the NFL, you've got 53 plus, another dozen on the practice squad?
Yeah.
So, obviously the wealth has got to be spread around a little bit more in the NFL. But, I mean, some of these top-end guys like Derek Carr, $25 million, that's not bad. But that's only one contract.
Yeah.
You're not seeing those contracts. 4 or 5 guys have those deals. Not a dozen, not 20, 25 guys have those deals around the league. You can see what his point is that the players in the NFL are not getting a big enough share of the crop at this point.
Yeah, I mean, these front offices, these owners are definitely keeping more in comparison to counterparts for other professional sports leagues here, keeping more of this money, more of this revenue.
Is it a bad business model for the NFL?
Well, I mean, the guys on the field, at the crux is the actual football being played of this industry. So do you really want, I mean, I know that's why there's the Players Association, but do you really want to irk them to this degree, have it be such a difference between them and a lot of them have friends in these other leagues?
From a business standpoint, I see exactly where the owners are. We're making you guys millionaires. We're turning you into overnight millionaires. And these billionaires did not become overnight successes. It's not how it works. These guys had to grind away to become the billionaire. And not that I'm trying to excuse this.
I'm not sure all of them. Some of them might be families.
That's true. Some of them could be families.
But you're right. There are definitely some hardworking owners.
Yeah, for a good chunk of them. Mm-hmm. That's wrong of me to say. You're correct there. And I'm not saying it's overnight successes that get these NFL players into the league, but it takes a lot more to own the team than it does to play for it.
Yeah, you have more things on your back. But I would say the only thing being the money given to them by the owners isn't that for the NFL guys, also talent is making them overnight millionaires.
Sure. That makes sense. So it's an interesting debate. It brings up, again, you can travel down that rabbit hole, if you will. Sammy doing a nice job of responding on Twitter. And listen, there are plenty of people, a lot of Bills fans calling him out, saying, you only played a couple games. Yeah. What are you whining for? You get paid millions anyways. Sammy in total going to make less than $20 million for the 4 years of work that he's had with the Bills or will have with the Bills. Remains to be seen what will happen after this year. He'll be an unrestricted free agent. He'll get paid by somebody. It just depends on how much. It depends on what kind of year he has. And he responded saying, listen, I got you. I know. I have to get healthy. I've got to play more. And we've got to get to the playoffs. Didn't say those exact words, but I'm inferring that from the type of tweets he was sending out.
That's a lot of characters you get spit out.
I'm inferring that from what he was tweeting out, though.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised usually with celebrities in general, not even guys in the NFL. He was replying to a lot of replies.
Yeah. This clearly a topic that hit home for Sammy. It clearly did. I mean, obviously, he's the one tweeting it out, but it hit home. So, all right, bump music in. We head to the D block. Friend of the show, Fots, Will Cleveland, the beer guru of really growing, not even Western New York, but New York in general, going to join the show. We're going to talk about American beers. What are some of the best ones maybe you've never heard of? And what's Will cooking up for the Democrat and Chronicle out in Rochester? That and more. TBD, rolling on.
My pod bad, my pod good, my pod do wish that your pod never would. We're back here on To Be Determined, baby.
I just want to know how long it takes for you to think of these things. This is all off the cuff, or are you planning this?
Oh, no, that's off the cuff. I guess really like Ludacris.
Okay.
Even though he's really out of his music career.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Yes, the voice you're hearing on the other end, one at Will Cleveland 13 of the Democrat and Chronicle, the beer guru of the greater region, really. It's not even just Western New York anymore. It's of the region. So, Will Cleveland.
I'm a brand, goddammit. Oh, sorry.
Very good. Very good. Oh, we just start in the D block with a gaffe, and I'll take responsibility for it. I didn't roll on the camera, but I did roll on the recording of Will. So it's going to be all Will right off the beginning of this block.
Love it.
Really bad. Really bad.
Sign me up.
Will, what's going on tonight?
Hi, I'm just drinking beer. It's my night off.
Happy 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, bud. Why not?
What's the plan this weekend? What's the plan? What do the days off look like?
My weekend's Sunday, Monday, so I'll be working Tuesday. But
Okay.
no worries. But I bank a holiday, so it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What are you enjoying at the moment?
I am drinking Trogs Brewing from. They're in Hershey, Pennsylvania now. They used to be in Harrisburg, but I'm drinking their double IPA called Nimble Giant.
Nimble Giant.
And it is just goddamn delightful.
Two things I've never been called: nimble or a giant.
I've been called Giant, but I've never been called Nimble.
It happens to the best of us. It happens.
Yeah, it's something.
Nothing wrong with that.
Will coming on this week, and we're going to discuss. Well, since it's July 4th weekend, we got to discuss American beers. So The question we posed to Will just moments ago before we recorded this segment: what is the most American beer we've never heard of?
So I can make this style, I can make this brewery, I can make this beer, but when you think of really quintessential American styles of beer, you really think of American IPAs, you think of cream ales, you think of an American adjunct lager, so beers like that, just beers that are all going to be really just awesome for crushing at your 4th of July barbecue there. So I think those would be the three styles I would kind of look at and say those are really the quintessential American styles. IPAs obviously didn't start here, but Americans kind of took it and made it into something, quintessentially American. I keep saying quintessential. I'm trying to sound SAT-ish and smart, apparently. So yeah. I think those are the three I would talk about the most. So you look at beers like Genesee Cream Ale, or you look at there's a lot of regional breweries kind of tackle the cream ale style too. You look at I can think of at least maybe 4 or 5 breweries just in and around Rochester that make the cream ale style. That was a very loud motorcycle. I just want to I'm outside and I'm drinking beer illegally on the sidewalk. Just don't tell the police. And,
this is on the line now, William Columbus.
Yeah. It's Bill Cincinnati.
Bill Cincinnati.
Bill Cincinnati. We're talking about cream ales. There we go.
Yes. Sorry, continue.
Cream ales, so a little bigger bodied, a little sweeter, but just kind of that beer that you can drink with a lot of different things, and kind of a versatile beer. And one of those beers, I kind of call them a conversation beer. It's something you can be drinking, and you don't have to be overly analytical or critical while you're drinking it. Think about what you're drinking or try to break it down. You can just kind of enjoy it in the moment. So I'm a big proponent of cream ales, and I think IPAs have kind of really become the really textbook American style. You see breweries in Great Britain and Spain, or in Canada even, who are making American style IPAs. My favorite brewery is this place called Bellwoods in Toronto, and they make really great American style hoppy beers. So it's kind of interesting to see these regional places kind of taking up the American mantle and kind of trying to make that their own. And if you can find it, I'm a big proponent of this Trogs Nimble Giant right now, and it's just an awesome double IPA. And yeah, I think IPAs are really the most American of the American, really.
And you've talked about in the past the fact that IPAs are kind of that new buzz with the craft beer scene and whatnot.
Well, so when I wrote a bigger article last fall about IPAs, I talked to the guy who is basically Dr. Beer. He's the chief economist for the Brewers Association in Colorado, which is the big group that deals with craft beer, independent beer. And he said that at this point, 25 cents of every dollar that's spent off premise, like grocery stores or whatever, is spent on IPAs. So I think that, IPAs really, so a quarter of every dollar spent is going towards IPAs. So that's really what's driving the market right now.
So flipping it now to, what are the most American beers that most people have heard of before?
I mean, that would be, like I said, that would be the American Adjunct Lager. So that's your Buds, that's your Coors Banquet beer, your Jenny Red Eye, those kind of beers that are really the most American of the American beers.
Is there anything that surprises you among that group of American beers? I mean, we looked at a list earlier, and the thing that jumped off the page to me, that the first 3, and I think the first 8 out of top 10 on this particular list, and I'm drawing a blank on where it was, they're light beers.
Oh yeah. So the number one beer in America is Bud Light.
Right.
And I think I was told that the biggest growing, the fastest growing beer right now is Michelob Ultra.
Interesting.
It's piss water. It's got no goddamn flavor, but it's whatever 47 calories or whatever the fuck they say. I'm sorry, whatever the heck they say it is. And sorry, we're getting a little R-rated here.
That's all right. We'll make sure to bleep that.
I get about my adjunct lagers apparently.
Not a fan, I guess.
Oh, I don't choose to spend my money with big evil beer companies. I like to support people where I know where my money's going.
That makes sense. We'll stick with the July 4th theme. What's the most patriotic can or bottle you've ever seen?
Jenny Light, actually, every year. The last few years, they've done like an American flag can, which was pretty badass. And of course, Bud renamed themselves last year as America. Remember that?
Yeah. I forgot about that.
That was pretty stupidly patriotic, which is hilarious for a company that's based in the Netherlands. But yeah, there's some American flags that people plaster on their beer cans.
And that always seems to be the typical one. I wasn't sure if there's one we were kind of missing. Tell us about the latest article, Will. What have you been working on?
So I'm working on, last week I published 2 articles. I wrote about this massive new Canandaigua brewery. That's the second biggest brewery that's opened in our region, besides Big Jenny. It's this place called Young Lion in Canandaigua, and they're massive. They're built for statewide distribution right off the bat, and it's
wow.
I couldn't get them to give me a number on how much money they spent, but if I were to estimate, I would say probably $5 million at least.
Wow.
These people have a lot of money, but they have a really cool plan, and I'm really excited to see how they're going to grow. So they opened this past week, and then I wrote about a new Penfield brewery that's about to open, called Witchcraft, as in WHICH. So which beer do you want next? And they're in Baytown Plaza in Penfield, and 55 taps. They literally have a food truck that's inside of the location without an engine, but that's going to serve as their kitchen.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's a really interesting business model, and they're going to actually be a to-go shop too, so you'll be able to buy beers to go there. And I'm excited to see, because they open this coming week. And then the final thing I'm about to look at is I'm about to do a bigger look at, what's kind of next for craft beer. IPAs have kind of dominated the market, so I want to talk to some smart people locally and maybe even some national people and see, what styles do they think are going to be the next upcoming styles for craft beer.
Interesting. What was the name of the Canandaigua brewery?
It's called Young Lion. So
Young
it's based
Lion.
on the old nickname for Rochester around the time of the canal was we were a boomtown, and we were known as the Young Lion of the West. As the western part of the state.
I like that.
So,
Hey, nice connection with history there.
Yeah, but
Will Cleveland, you can find him on the Democrat and Chronicle. Is it dnc.com? What's the website for Democrat and Chronicle?
DemocratandChronicle.com.
DemocratandChronicle.com. And Will, you're on Twitter at Will Cleveland13, Cleveland like the city?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent. Will, happy 4th of July. Enjoy the next couple of days off you got. We appreciate the time.
Happy 4th.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Even though the motorcycles are loud.
All right, time for It's Got Legs, a story that we think will continue to make headlines in the coming weeks. Reports indicating that LeBron James not actively recruiting free agents to Cleveland. In the past, LeBron has actively recruited players to Northeast Ohio. LeBron. James entering the final year of his deal in Cleveland, and there's been plenty of speculation that Mr. James is headed out, maybe in particular for La La Land. The fact that he's not actively recruiting players certainly points to that fact. He knows the Cavs can't beat the Warriors, case in point, this past finals, the 2017 finals. He's not really doing much about it, Matty. What do you make of no recruitment by LeBron James?
LeBron James. It had to happen. It had to happen. That's what he's really called. It's a little fishy because he's staying quiet under the radar right now when all of these other really big offseason moves are happening in the NBA. And he's going to be flipping the script for his boys. I'm not sure if they're currently on the Cavaliers or not when it comes to next year where you really see what's important for him. That's when he's going to really be politicking, so on and so forth. So it's just a little fishy.
Have the Cavs hired a GM?
I don't think they have yet.
Okay, so we all know that LeBron's pretty much the head coach, star forward, and GM of this team. And if he's not recruiting and there's no GM in place, they're just not participating in the offseason at all.
They should switch the game.
They're going to head straight into the next season.
They should switch the game. You've heard of player coaches. Player GM.
Player GM.
Why not? There's actually a bunch of reasons why not. But so early on, after they lost the final, it seemed like they threw in the white towel in terms of, we're just going to attack with our same guys, even though it definitely could use some youth being thrust into that roster. I mean, they have plenty of talent, obviously. I mean, they got to the finals. They could easily get there again, but for that extra step, that's where the real question comes out of this.
Well, if you want to win a championship, you have to do something. The team across from you is keeping all their pieces. Andre Iguodala re-signing. That's the one guy that can D up LeBron on that team. That team's staying intact, depending on if Klay Thompson hurts himself in China or not. They're going to be intact for the most part. You obviously cannot beat them. Every other team is adding pieces. You missed out on the Paul George sweepstakes. Gordon Hayward's headed, looks like maybe to Boston or Miami. What are you doing in the offseason here?
I don't know how you give up so early on trying to be part of, maybe not even part of the big-time free agency, but at least free agency in general. I mean, I think they just hope that they're going to snip away from Tristan Thompson, Khloe Kardashian, and everything's going to be okay.
It's not looking good. It is not looking good. So LeBron appears to be... Listen, he'll work his way into the finals next year because that's what he does, and then he'll be off to somewhere else. He'll be off to La La Land to make his wife happy.
The Clippers, no less, probably.
Well, it becomes interesting. He said he wouldn't play for the Clippers, so purple and gold.
Let it happen.
Could it be the purple and gold?
Clippers, his banana boat boy. He's not the Clippers anymore.
Keep your eye on free agency now that every big fish is off the market and what LeBron decides to do, if anything. Our thanks. We move to the thank you part of the show.
Booyaka.
Our thanks to Justin Rocke, the voice of the JC Cardinals. You can find him at Justin Rocke, Rocke with an E. Our thanks to Will Cleveland, pair of Fots. Will talking about the American beers. You can find him at Will Cleveland 13 on Twitter. Cleveland like the city. My thanks to the guys at $10 Tea Club. Make sure to head over to $10teaclub.com. Rocking one for the show today. Use the promo code TBD. Save yourself 15%. Guys, it's a great product. Ladies, they have it there too. Guys, get your lady something. Ladies, get your guy something. That's all I'll say about that. My thanks to Matt for showing up. Our thanks to the senior producer of TBD, Mitch Beluco. He does not have a Twitter. Our thanks to the executive producer of TBD at Sports by Mom. She does have a Twitter.
That's it. That was it. You just said it. It just came out of your mouth.
You can check us out at TBD_show. on Twitter. You can check us out on Instagram at To Be Determined Show. You can email us, tbdmailman@gmail.com. The email gets me every time.
Hey, it got me earlier today.
We're on Facebook now, too. I got us a Facebook page this past week. It's at To Be Determined Pod. At To Be Determined Pod.
We don't have babies. We're going to put some baby photos up there. That's just big on Facebook. I love them.
Technically, the one photo we have up there is our baby photo because it was from the very beginning. All right.
Some man boys.
Happy 4th of July weekend, everybody. Enjoy it. Later, boys.